and be identified for life. It's a game changer. NIMSI, providing assured identity.
Dental. Thank you so very much for staying with us this morning, and it's time to bring you our interview segment. And today, like I told you earlier, we're taking a look at implications of mismanaged pension scheme. Now, as part of government's effort to make the lives of Nigerian senior citizens more dignified and respectable, the government introduced a contributory pension scheme. By the new scheme, both the employer and the employee make monthly contributions towards the ultimate retirement of the employee, whose pension can be paid from the accumulated funds for life. Now, the contributory pension program suddenly created a pool of funds which the Nigerian government put in charge of a commission, and that's the Pension Commission. The Pension Commission thereafter supervised the emergence of pension fund managers who manage these funds by investing them into lucrative areas of the economy and undertaking the payment of the pension of employees who subscribe to their services. However, in the past 2 months or more, Nigeria's pension scheme has been mired in all kinds of controversy. And initially, when the Nigerian government noticed considerable irregularities, especially in the public sector, in the administration of pension in many government agencies and ministries, it set up a task force to reform the entire system. In the course of its work, the task force uncovered monumental fraud, which revealed that pension officials and top government functionaries had converted the contributory funds into means of enriching themselves. At the last count, the task force had recovered over 200 billion naira of stolen pension funds. And just on Monday, the task force discovered over 3 trillion naira of stolen pension funds. However, in the course of its oversight function, the National Assembly also realized that Nigeria's pension scheme seems to have been compromised. A probe by the National Assembly soon made the hunter to become the hunted. The Pension Task Force team, which was set up to sanitize the pension scheme, was accused of mismanaging pension funds. The situation has become so messy that the task force team last week petitioned the President of the Senate, raising concerns that the committee looking into the pension scheme was biased against the task force team. In fact, there were reports that the National Assembly Probe Committee may have been compromised by those who have stolen so much money from the pension funds. In many developed societies like Sweden, the United States and Britain, pension funds create a pool of resources that are deployed on long-term basis to provide housing and other infrastructure whose payback period is over a very long time. The question is, what are the implications of mismanaging Nigeria's pension scheme? This is the issue we are focusing on this Tuesday morning. And joining us to take a look at this topic this morning is Tope Fasua. Tope Fasua is an economist. Tope, it's nice to have you join us.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
We also have Barrister Chibuzo Ejike, lawyer and member, Legislative Watch. Ejike, you're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Tope, let me start with you. You heard my intro into this topic. Now, of course, everyone is worried, and rightfully so. But first, let's start from the beginning. What do you make, in your own assessment, what do you make of this whole pension brouhaha?
Well, it's such a mess, and perhaps we sink low almost every day in this country. And just when you think that we can't sink lower, we go even lower. And, so that's the worry. If you see the brickbats being thrown between the pension committee, reform committee, and the Senate. I mean, the Senate had actually accused the pension committee of embezzling or mismanaging about 38 billion. Only for the committee man to come out yesterday or thereabout, I was reading in the Vanguard, that they themselves have discovered 3.3 trillion of fraud. And the first thing I noticed about what the man was saying, that's Mr. Alaji Maina, he was talking about a certain cabal. And I said, God have mercy. We're living in a cabalocracy. I'm sorry to say, but you see, if you're talking about a cabal, you better mention names. What's the point of befuddling the people of this country? I personally am sick and tired of being sick and tired, like the Americans will say. You know, because you come, you say, oh, there's a cabal. You know, we're not dealing with spirits here. If you are sure of a certain cabal that's actually mismanaging funds belonging to pensioners in this country, you better mention them or keep quiet forever. So it's a fraud that these guys are perpetrating on us. And, you know, so on one hand, the Senate has accused him. On the other hand, the guy is accusing whoever back, and of course, he's accusing the Senate of being in the pockets of the cabal. Give me a break. You know, so that's so it actually tells you that we're thinking as low as we can get. Now, the point is this. I'm an economist, and so I will approach it from a socio-economic, socio-psychological point of view. A nation, a people will be measured by how they treat their most vulnerable people. A nation will be measured by how they treat their most vulnerable people. Pensioners, I remember at a point in time that they used to sleep on the streets of Abuja here. You don't see that anymore. That's the military pensioners. Maybe they've been able to take care of a bit of that. You know, you don't hear much about the military pensions these days. I see they got their act together. But, you know, those pensioners are being taken advantage of because they are weak. Okay, they are old. They no longer pull the strings. Now, you know, when you treat your people in that way, there's a problem. I remember also a friend of mine used to work in a bank, and the banks are also involved in some of these things. And he told me of a time before the Pension Reforms Act, that's in the early 2000s or late 90s, when they were asked to go and pay some pensioners, some military pensioners in Makurdi. And you know that people have to bring their parents. Some have to put the parent in a wheelbarrow and wheel him to the center for verification because the man couldn't walk anymore. These are people who have taken bullets on behalf of the country. And, you know, and the guy said, look, he was there in Makurdi saying that, look, they needed to pay these people. There was a riot almost starting. He called his boss in Lagos and said, that one said, look, let's keep the money for 2 more weeks. They need to work out some money for the boys. So, you see, it's about the callousness, how callous we have become. I've been on a project of recent, okay, I'm going to, you know, so that the other gentleman can speak. Look at the way we treat pedestrians in this Abuja. Go to area 1, go to area 3. This morning, see people running across the street. We have made absolutely no provision, and yet they talk about a certain master plan. How can you talk about a master plan in a city as this when you have absolutely no provision for pedestrians? The Minister of State in charge of FCT is Harvard trained. The woman went to Harvard. She's silver spoon, but nobody seems to care. Now they are trying to do some pedestrian bridges. Of course, they have to borrow money from the World Bank to do that. Now you have to borrow money from the World Bank to provide what should be basic infrastructure. In other countries, when you go there, you mentioned Sweden, you mentioned America, you will see that they make it as a matter of policy that it should be easy for a disabled person to get around the city, any city, and a city will be judged by how well a disabled can go through it. They are building these pedestrian bridges now. It's going to be a task for people to climb all those bridges every day. Is there any incentive? None. And here we are, a country where we're making provisions of maybe another 2 billion. I heard you here talking to me, Dr. Abati, and he said, well, we're providing another 2 billion to build a certain meeting hall, he said, which we thought it was banquet hall. Okay, another 16 or 17 billion to build a house for the VP. So what I'm saying, that our priorities are wrong. There would not have been nothing wrong with this country. It's a prosperous country, it must be said. But the priorities are wrong. And that's why someone can actually dip hands and take blood money, take the money of people who are dead and dying and pocket it in billions. It's absolute madness. See, now, whereas it's a bit tough or a bit, you know, to make a judgment call on this issue because they're still investigating. But however, how does a deputy director in a ministry explain that she has 84 million in a certain singular account from selling pure water? That is evident. You know, this unnecessary quest for properties, for money, we're benchmarking ourselves. People are thinking about flying private jets, flying helicopters. That's the problem we have.
All right, we'll come back to that because it seemed to me, AGK, that it's... AZK. Okay, I beg your pardon. That this is all about a systemic problem. It's all about the structure that it's in place. You take a look at some of these pensioners and you're worried for the country. Like he said, a country is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable. Now let's hear your own thought about, so far, what you've made of this pension problem that that Nigeria is faced with right now. We know that in the National Assembly just last week, Maina didn't show up when it was summoned by the committee to be at that, probe and that hearing. He didn't show up till the end. And yesterday was supposed to be there as well. He stopped at the gate and said he couldn't get in and went back. Doesn't that say to you that he probably has something to hide? What's your take on that?
Thank you very much. It's very, very disheartening and disappointing too that we are discussing the issue of pension fraud in this country. And these are the people who have served this country for many years. And the country is supposed to take care of them, haven't taken care of the country. And every day we hear billions of naira in the private purses. Maina gave his reasons why he was unable to appear before the members of the Senate committee on the first invitation. Second day, yesterday, I watched it. I watched what happened there. He was prevented from entering the Senate.
Prevented?
Yesterday. He was prevented.
We had it in the news, Inside Nigeria News earlier, and he said that he was being stalked by women and children of pensioners who believe that thanks to him, the fathers and husbands have been paid and now they can go back to school. But do you really believe?
And before then, there was a warrant of arrest by the Senate, signed by the Senate President to the Nigeria Police, and by Section 8.9 of the Constitution and 8.8, the Senate has power to summon whoever that they want any information or document from. And that has been done. But I see it as a failure of the police. Nothing stopped them from arresting Maina and taking him directly to the Senate. The warrant of arrest has not been vacated. It was valid and still running. Nothing stopped them.
Okay.
That is one thing.
Okay. Tope, let's come back to you. Now, there's no doubt that with a large workforce both in the public and private sector in Nigeria, the contributory pension scheme can generate considerable amount of money. Now, does the country have any idea, just how much its pension scheme generates in a year? Let's start from there.
Well, it may be tough for me to make a judgment call on that, but I must first of all correct one of the things you said initially. The pool of funds has always been there. It may have increased recently, but of course, when you hear that, you know what it means to say 3.3 trillion disappeared from a fund? The man, I hope he knows what he's saying. It's monumental. That's a whole year's budget in this country. And for people to have actually pocketed and you call it a cabal? Now, if this administration has to be careful about this issue of cabal. The administration came in on the basis of a cabal, or certain Yaradua cabal or Ture cabal. Then, sometimes early last year, we heard that there was an oil cabal, that was a subsidy cabal, which today, we don't even know who the members of the cabal are. Now, here we're talking about a pension cabal. So, okay, maybe they should change the grammar, put another lexicon, let Nigerians hear something else. So, but if you keep on talking about cabal, then, therefore the fund has always been there. Number two, the pension commission, there's a National Pension Commission. In my view, they're doing a fantastic job. And not all the funds, well, they have supervisory capability over every pension. However, there are two kind of systems they run. There are the open systems, which are those ones where you have to go to a PFA, the pension fund administrator, and then whatever those ones take has to be lodged with the pension fund custodian. Then there are the ones that are closed systems, whereby, like these ones that they're talking about, the civil service. The real problems that you can see, PHCN pension, police pension, civil service pension, are those closed systems that have some sort of political overtone, whereby the Pension Commission cannot adequately supervise them. There's a limit to which you can push these people. Now, in terms of whether there's more money in that account or in different pension funds, it's debatable. Now, let me let you know, from the perspective of an economist, there's a shortfall in every pension fund worldwide. When the issue of pension was first mooted worldwide, they calculated that people will live up to 70 years and die. However, that's not the case anymore. In the developed countries, of course, people are living as high as late as say 100, 110 years. However, for them, the problem they have is that not many more people are contributing to the pension scheme because they're not having more children. In our own instance, the problem is slightly different. We're not living as long as people would live in Western Europe, but of course as well, what we find out is that we have a huge youth population which is unemployed. So in the same way, there's not enough of contribution going into every pension fund all over the world. Now the problem with the problem that the PENCOM will have in terms of supervising its PFAs and especially the open system is to ensure that they invest these monies in the correct areas. In 2007, 2008, when there was a crash in our stock market, some of them really lost a lot of money. Some of them also have a lot of money tied in the property sector. You probably will know that in the upper end segment of the property sector, the luxury buildings and so on, there's a glut already. If you drive around Abuja, you see how many buildings are vacant. If you went to Lekki, you see how many buildings are vacant. If they had concentrated on the lower end of the market, then they can't miss it. But many of them chose to go up market. So you see, so that one, it's not quite a big problem. The real problem we're talking about now is the civil service pension, which is still a closed system, which is the reason why they had to appoint minor in the first place. Okay, now what we're seeing is, it's sad for us to say someone would actually put their hands in someone's hard-earned savings for someone who's vulnerable, and you actually pocket it and use it to do what? Is this madness we need to go after? My generation and those coming after me, we must let ourselves know that it's absolutely vanity, okay, to pursue all these things and then to steal money in order to build a big building or to buy a big car or do all these kind of things. So that's my worry. So yes, the fund is there. Of course, there's so much that we can do with those funds if our priorities were right. Nigeria's 4 trillion naira budget, 4.1 trillion naira budget, 2013, sounds large. But you ask yourself, what and what? The real problem is, what are you deploying these funds to? Okay, we talk about a big problem in this country, the sponsoring of pilgrimages. It's not done in almost every other country in the world, if that I know. Okay, you sponsor the Muslims, you sponsor the Christians. Is that where we should be spending the money? Okay, you build you build the banquets, you build the huge. Every state government. When we were discussing the issue of the vice president's new mansion, somebody from Akwa Ibom said, "What are you guys talking about? That's not a big deal. We can afford it. After all, in my state, the governor used 16 billion to build his own mansion and 10 billion to build his own banquet." And perhaps it's true in all over the country. So that it is about, we should know we're in an emergency situation.
Okay.
And when you're in an emergency, you must redirect the way you spend and reprioritize what you do.
Reprioritizing, Chibuzo. Now, you have said earlier that more needs to be done. Now, the pensioners have called for the sack of MENA and for the investigation, for the executive to get involved in the investigation, because they are wondering, what exactly is MENA doing, still walking around as a free man without anyone really, coming in for the kill. And of course, we've seen what is happening between MENA and the National Assembly, and it doesn't look like much is going to come out from there. Where should the government approach this issue of monumental fraud in the pension scheme from?
Thank you very much. One vital something that we have to ask ourselves is this. MENA was the representative of the executive. He was set up by the executive to investigate the fraud in the pension scheme. He came out with some success. Nobody's talking about that. I heard him saying, the money recovered. You said it here, about 200 and something billion naira have been recovered, raw cash, from the system, from the fraud. 1 million naira was saved from the police pension. That monthly, the government have been releasing 1.5 something billion naira monthly for the pension, for the payment of pensioners from the police pension, which has reduced. They don't need it. What they are being paid or released for the payment presently is 500 million naira. It has saved the country about 1 billion naira. Nobody's talking about that.
Okay, what about the irregularities that the Senate committee has discovered, which is why, you know, this probe has been initiated in the first place?
Yes.
You don't think that there's any irregularities?
I have seen the Senate report. There was a report by the Senate after their investigation. MENA has appeared before them severally in the past, and they came up with their report. Because the report was not exhaustive, that's why they were asked to go and do more work.
Okay.
I don't know whether you have seen the copy of the report. I see the mandate of the Senate. When they were constituted, there's a mandate. Go and investigate the rot and provide a solution on how these pensioners who have served this country will be paid regularly and properly. But that was not done. If you read the report, what I expected the Senate is to work together with MENA. MENA has come out with what he has done, what he has recovered, what he has saved for the country. About 7,000 something ghost pensioners have been discovered, and that have been blocked. Biometrics of the pensioners have been taken to avoid paying people who are not in existence. Billions of naira going to people who never existed. But this issue, the question is, these are the civil service of today. And when you talk about pensioners, there's no way you talk about pensioners without referring back to them as civil servants of yesterday. Is there an incentive to these people? If somebody is working without hope, that when he retires, that something is there, the government has made plan for him or her, will there be incentive? This is what we are discussing. But that is not the case. People feel, when we talk about cabal, there's no doubt they existed, and they still exist.
Is it enough for them to just exist? What should be done?
So many...
MENA has come out to say that what he has discovered, 3.3 trillion naira, and that there's a cabal somewhere. Shouldn't we also know who this cabal is so they can be disbanded and their wings, you know, can be clipped?
He has mentioned names in the past. Some persons are in court now, facing prosecution. Some persons' property have been confiscated presently through the effort of MENA. I had the finance minister do all of a brief when he appeared before the Senate that said that so amount of money, about 78 or something billion naira, had been factored into the budget of the country. And this was the money that was recovered by the effort of the MENA group. I'm not saying that MENA is a saint, but what I'm saying, all these things he has said, this is what I've done, this is what I've recovered for the country. Did anybody verify? If these things are true, the man has done very, very well for the country.
Okay.
And should not be haunted. Rather, let them work together as a team, because we are pushing one interest. The interest is to stop this irregularity going on the pension scheme.
Tope, again, the man Abdul Rashid Maina is the chairman pension tax team. And there's a reason why this team was put together by the federal government. In your own opinion, what do you think Abdul Rashid Maina has done wrong or is doing wrong as a chairman of this task team?
Well, sincerely speaking, I don't know him very much, and so usually I don't want to personalize this thing. I think, but you know, part of the problem in this country is that everybody goes to work and everybody seems to put in their best, but somewhere or the other there's some sort of confusion. You know, in my view, you know, my quarrel with him is this idea of, number one, you know, this idea of cabal somewhere, you know. I think cabal is another word for impossibility. When people don't want to actually come out and say this is it, you don't want to take the risks, then you say there's a cabal, and then everybody just say, oh yeah, cabal. See, it's about trying to play into a certain psychology of the average Nigerian. When you say cabal, in fact, for maybe if I was from the South, when you say cabal, I say, oh, these northerners are the ones doing it. You know, so whatever the case is, you know, let's be very clear. However, there's a bigger implication, and I'm saying that all of them should be careful. Both the Senate and minor should be very careful, They should work together like the gentleman has said, but they should be very careful. Let's be very sure of our figures before we say them. Now, 3.3 trillion is another all-time high. If I was a foreigner and I came to Nigeria, what I'll be trying to make up my mind with will be the headlines of the newspaper. Perhaps this morning, a number of the newspapers will have 3.3 trillion lost in pension fund. You convert that into dollars and it's a huge amount of money. Is it sure that is the case? And then if it's sure that's the case, is it about sensationalism or to go after the people, name them, let them be jailed if necessary? Not the number of people are in jail right now. As I speak now, well, he's a lawyer. I'm sure that even those people that were indicted or whatever, as out on bail or something, fine, it's a bailable offense. But at the end of the day, we are too tired in this country of seeing all these kind of things. You come, you sensationalize us, you raise our BPs up, and then at the end of the day, we're going nowhere. However, there's another implication. When you say that someone has stolen police pension, do you actually expect the policeman on the street to be friendly to civilians? I don't know. Do you? Is it possible? When the guy is working is a corporal that they call them the corporal. You expect him to smile to you when he heard that maybe 200 billion of his pension has been taken? They said there's another 500 billion or about 500 million or so that was hanging somewhere in London, PHCN pension. And they can't pay the PHCN, and you expect the PHCN man working today not to switch off your lights in anger? So you see, that's the thing. Now, this is going all through the spectrum. And I'm saying that who is going to save us from this paradigm where we have found ourselves? The philosophers say you think, therefore you are. There's a need to change the way we think. All the problems we have today is because of the way we think. Okay? So in my view, the issue for me is not about Maina. The issue is not about the Senate. Perhaps both of them are doing the best, okay, that they can do. But they need to quickly harmonize and let's know the position, one. Number two, they need to also be ready to name names. We're not ready to be looking at some people and say this is a cabal, this is not a cabal. We don't want to, they shouldn't leave us to guess. Say it like it is. Let's bear everything out. That's the time that they can know that they have served their country. Maina has accused the Senate committee of being in the pockets of the cabal. So perhaps the Senate committee should put him under pressure to name who the cabal is. If you are naming maybe ex-politicians, we are naming even serving politicians, let's have it, please, for the sake of our children. How do our children feel when they hear all this news? Because they read as well. They are on the internet. And they're looking at us as these people who are older. They are useless people who are in the same country where next year, 2013, we intend to go borrowing to finance our budget deficit. We want to borrow from the World Bank, from the African Development Bank, from the Chinese Exim Bank, from the Indian Exim Bank, from the where is that? About French Development Agency, okay? Perhaps from the IMF. Before you go out borrowing is because you say you are broke, you don't have money. Right. But look at it, we're saying that a certain 3.3 trillion, that will more than finance the deficit. So if 3.3 trillion is lost, can we start to recover the properties and put them on the market? If they have money anywhere, can they seize it? And then, therefore, let us not borrow money from these agencies and find ourselves back in the debt trap that we managed to exit in 2006. Is that despicable?
Okay. Now, how do they begin to track back this money? Maina said he has recovered this. There's a 3.3 trillion again now recovered. Where is that money recovered? Because there are still pensioners who are out there waiting for their pensions to be paid for them. It's very disheartening to know that people over the years have paid their dues and have saved up money, and when it's time for them to get this money, they cannot get it. That's also a society that does not provide housing for them. They cannot get, basic amenities of life, not even infrastructure, not accommodation, sometimes very difficult to feed. Where do these people stand in all of this? Who is taking them into cognizance and making sure that the change that they desire, that this money be paid to them so they can live their old lives in peace?
Thank you very much. I want to make one thing very clear. Before the presidential pension tax scheme was inaugurated, The meaning is that there was a problem in existence that led to the inauguration of that task team, which means something has gone wrong somewhere that now touched the heart of the executive. Go and find out what the problem is. That was the task of the committee. And because of the work, the investigation, and the recovery made by the committee, before now, nobody knows about what is going on there. Nobody has. It's just because they recovered, they mentioned names, billions of naira. This is what we have recovered: 73,000 ghost workers in police pension and the head of service. They mention names. You see them in the newspapers, and this now got the attention of the people, and people started shouting, "Is this what is happening?" And that's what made the Senate. Let us go and know what is happening there. It's from the achievement of MENA Group, the task team that led the Senate. So what I expect them, haven't done very far. I mean the task team haven't done very, very well in the aspect given, because they are just, we have so many of them. We are talking about the police, the military, and the head of service. There are so many other pensioners in other organizations and ministry. Nobody's talking about them. But this they've done. If they have done this in this, they're supposed to be encouraged. The Senate, from their report, may not recover this money, about 200-something billion naira. He recovered it from people. And none of those persons were mentioned. The problem of pension had been in existence before the appointment of MENA as the chairman of the task team. Who are the people who were responsible? Right. Why is Senate not mentioning the names? Why is it that it's only MENA that the Senate is now going after? Is he the person?
You seem to believe a lot in the MENA group and what they have achieved so far.
No.
Don't get me wrong. I am not unaware of, some of these discoveries because of the task team, but it doesn't change the fact that both the Senate and the chairman of the task team have not been able to put their acts together.
They have to come together.
Find a way to properly solve this problem and let the solution, trickle down. There should be a trickle down effect.
Exactly.
And let the people who matter feel it.
Let two of them come together because they have one assignment. One assignment is to sanitize the pension scheme so that our elder statesmen can pray for the country. I remember sometimes in Zone 4, Junction, that ministry pension board, you see them, old men, 60, 80, 90 years, sitting, sleeping, eating, waiting for approval.
Under the bridge.
It's an eyesore. These are the people who fought for the country, who work for the country. They're supposed to be the heroes of this country. But the reverse is the case. But the question is, who are the people? We are now talking about pension. Who are these people? These are the civil servants today.
All right.
Tomorrow they will retire.
Earlier, I mentioned the fact that, it's a systemic problem. And then for you to be able to address a problem, you have to also take a look at the structure. It's not enough to, throw money at the problem or find a way to solve this problem without first changing the system and changing the structure. You will agree with me that there has to be a change. Where does this change start from? And how does it trickle down to make sure that pensioners are not left, to die in misery, rather than being celebrated?
I remember what Michael Jackson's song, Man in the Mirror. Except you hold a mirror to yourself to actually see the way you are. I wish Nigerians knew the way this sounds to other countries when they listen to us, even as close by as Ghana. You would not hear that someone went and just took all the monies of Ghana's pensioners and pocketed it and starts to build house all over the place, buy this one, send money abroad and all those kind of things, and then begins to just live happily ever after. So it's bad. In fact, ordinarily speaking, when I was called to come for this show, I was like, pension. Then I did a bit of research and I thought, oh my God, we need to really speak up about this issue. And I'm very, very angry, it must be said, I would probably want to ask, they said they recovered about 200 billion, but I'm not sure anybody is in jail for that. Now, if you don't jail someone for for stealing money from pensioners, I don't know where you are going to jail. And except to begin to make this clear to people that, look, you can't cheat the vulnerable. You can't steal from the vulnerable. I know that in this country, let's truth be told, there are instances where monies that are voted for people with HIV/AIDS disappear. People with tuberculosis, someone pockets the money. And people are dying. That's why I hardly respect any of these big men in Nigeria. And indeed, they don't deserve our respect, most of them. Because at the end of the day, you're spending blood money and people are telling you, oh, Lankadede, you are too much and all that. Every time they clock 42 and a half years old or 53.6 years old, you see the newspapers will be full of congratulatory. What's wrong with our people? Many times they will even take money from the government coffers to place that congratulatory ad for the grandmother of the man who died, and they're trying to do the 20th year the anniversary of that. You use government money to pay for that. Okay. So I'm saying that it's about the priority. Now, clearly,
we don't have time anymore,
is that so it must go more and more. They must move towards the PENCOM openness. Okay, a lot of these funds should no longer be closed. They should move them to PFAs. We can see that there's less fraud going on in those areas because the PENCOM has a very good risk management profile. They have some of the best risk managers in this country, and there's no reason why the president should not stand up this time around and say, look, let's move all these things under PENCOM properly. Let PFAs manage this thing for these guys. Okay. That's so that there won't be no politics anymore. That's my thinking.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving it to the PFAs. Your final word, because we've got to go now.
We need prayers in this country. Wow.
Prayers.
And if they move it to the PFAs, the fund will then dovetail properly. The PFAs will be well funded, and then they can invest better.
Thank you so much, Tope. We have been joined this morning we've been taking a look at the topic, the mismanaged implications of mismanaged pension pension scheme, and we've had Tope Fasua, an economist, talking to us about this issue, some of the issues raised. Tope believes that this money should be handed over to PENCOM to manage and the PFAs to manage, because they seem to be able to curb fraud in that regard. While my brother here, Barrister Chibuzo Ezike, a lawyer and a member of Legislative Watch, believes that Nigeria needs prayers. But some will argue prayers without works, nothing may happen with those prayers. But nonetheless, the pension scheme, definitely the mismanagement of the pension scheme, a lot still needs to be done. You're still watching the Thursday edition of Kakaki, the African Voice. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Dental Healthy Hands Lesson 1.
Do you know that germs are tiny, harmful living things? Do you know that right now your hands are full of these harmful germs? That's why you need to fight them by bathing and washing our hands regularly with Dettol.
Mom, today we learned how to fight germs with Dettol soap. Good health starts with healthy hands.
You love that wonderful Just Being Clean fragrance that makes the air in your home delicate and fresh. It's just a pity that it doesn't last. But not anymore, thanks to new Airwick Freshmatic. It's the automatic spray that continuously releases beautiful fragrances throughout the night and day. So now that Just Being Clean fragrance will always be in the air, and everybody will know your home is something special. New Airwick Freshmatic. Airwick. It's good to be home. Now for half the price.
For Dettol, it has always been our mission to keep families healthy. To show how families can fight the germs that cause illnesses, we started a 2-year study amongst 6,000 people using Dettol to wash their hands regularly and keep surfaces clean and disinfected was shown to be the best way to keep